My father kept his records in a green metal box. It sat on the third shelf of his home office closet, behind a row of tax folders and an old road atlas he had never thrown away because he said paper maps were more honest than screens. I had seen that box my entire childhood, had noticed it the way you notice things that are always present without understanding what they contain. When he passed 3 years ago, my uncle Raymond told me not to worry about the box. He said he would handle everything. He said grief was not the time for paperwork. I believed him. I was 29 and I had just lost my father, and Raymond had always been the capable one. The older brother who handled things, who showed up with solutions, who had managed his own affairs with enough competence that no one thought to question whether he would manage someone else's the same way. I handed him the box. I should not have handed him the box. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from. My name is Grace Ellison. I am 32 years old. And the 3 years I spent trusting my uncle with my father's estate are the 3 years I cannot get back. But what I found when I finally opened the books and what happened in the months after is a story about what documentation can recover even when trust has failed completely. My father was not a wealthy man in the way that word is used for people with visible assets. He was wealthy in the way that careful, consistent people become wealthy over decades, quietly, without announcement, through a paid-off house, a modest investment account he had been adding to since his 30s, a small commercial property he had purchased in his 40s and rented to a dry cleaning business for 19 years. He had never discussed the specifics with me. That was his generation. The belief that money was a private matter, that children should be provided for without being made anxious by the details. What I knew was general. The house. Something about investments. The commercial property on Birch Street that I had driven past 1,000 times without thinking much about. When Raymond took over the estate, he told me the total value was modest. He said the commercial property had been underperforming. He said the investment account had taken losses in the market. He said he was doing his best to stabilize things and that I should let him work without adding the pressure of constant questions. I did not ask constant questions. I asked 4 questions over 3 years by email, and received 4 responses that were warm and general and contained no specific numbers. I told myself that was normal. That estates took time. That Raymond was doing me a favor by handling the complexity so I didn't have to. The thing that finally changed my mind was small. It was a Christmas card. Margaret Chu had rented the Birch Street property from my father for 19 years. She sent a Christmas card every year, to my father while he was alive, and then, with the particular loyalty of someone who respected what they had lost, to me after he passed. The card that arrived in December of my 3rd year of trusting Raymond contained a handwritten note. She said she wanted me to know that the rent had gone up twice since my father passed. Once 18 months ago, once 6 months ago. She said she wanted to be sure I was aware in case the information was useful. She said she had always paid on time and hoped to continue the arrangement. I read the note 3 times. Then I pulled up my bank statements. 3 years of them. I had received 1 transfer from the estate in year 1. A modest amount Raymond described as an interim distribution. Nothing since. The rent had gone up twice. I had received 1 payment in 3 years. I called my attorney the next morning. Her name was Patricia Wells. I had used her once before briefly for a lease agreement on my apartment, and she had been precise and direct in a way I had found reassuring. I told her what I knew. She asked for the estate documents. The will, the original inventory, the letters testamentary that had granted Raymond authority to act as executor. I did not have copies of any of them. Raymond had them. Patricia said that was fine. She said we would get them. The process of formally requesting estate documentation from an executor who does not want to provide it is slower than it should be and faster than they expect. Patricia filed the request on a Tuesday. Raymond responded through his own attorney, which told me immediately that he had anticipated this moment and prepared for it, which told me something important about what the documents contained. We received the records 6 weeks later. Complete, court-ordered, every transaction documented by legal requirement. I sat at Patricia's conference table on a Wednesday afternoon and we went through them together page by page, and I want to describe what that felt like because I think it is important. It felt like reading a story about my father's life that had been edited by someone else. The commercial property on Birch Street had been generating $4,200 per month at the time of my father's death. Raymond had increased it to $4,800 18 months after, and then to $5,400 6 months after that. exactly as Margaret's note had described. 3 years of rental income at varying rates, totaled $163,000. My estate had received $31,000 of that. Patricia highlighted the discrepancy in yellow without comment and moved to the next page. The investment account had not taken losses in the market. It had been liquidated, partially in 4 separate transactions over 18 months, and the proceeds had been transferred to an account that was not the estate account. Patricia circled each transaction in red. The total removed was $94,000. The house had been refinanced. A home equity line of credit had been opened against it 14 months after my father's death, using a power of attorney document that Raymond had filed with the county. The draws against that line totaled $67,000. Patricia turned the last page. She placed her pen on the table. She looked at me. The total discrepancy, she said, across rental income, investment liquidations and equity draws, is approximately $323,000. I looked at the number. At the yellow highlights and red circles and 3 years of my father's careful quiet wealth being redirected by the brother he had trusted. I thought about the green metal box. About handing it over because grief was not the time for paperwork. What do we do? I said. Patricia picked up her pen. We file, she said. Today. Raymond called me 2 days after the filing. I did not answer. He called 3 more times that week. I did not answer any of them. His attorney contacted Patricia with a settlement proposal. Patricia reviewed it and described it to me as inadequate. I told her to decline. The second proposal was better. Patricia described it as a starting point. I told her to counter. The process took 4 months. I want to be honest about that. 4 months of documents and proposals and the particular exhaustion of a legal process that requires you to revisit something painful in precise detail repeatedly until it is resolved. There were days when I wanted it to be over more than I wanted it to be right. Patricia reminded me quietly on one of those days that the difference between what was being offered and what was owed was still significant and that I was entitled to what was owed. I held on. The final settlement recovered $271,000 of the $323,000 discrepancy. Raymond's attorney negotiated a structured payment that would take 2 years to complete. Raymond lost his executor status and was required to submit to court supervision for the remainder of the estate administration. He has not called me since the settlement was signed. I drove past the Birch Street property last spring. The dry cleaning sign was still there. Margaret's business, 19 years of consistent tenancy, exactly as my father had built it. I sat in my car for a while and thought about him. About the green metal box. About the road atlas he kept because paper maps were more honest than screens. He had been right about that. Paper is honest. Numbers do not change what they are because someone needs them to. I sent Margaret a Christmas card that year for the first time. I thanked her for her note. I told her the rent would be returning to the original rate. She called to thank me. She said my father would be proud. I told her I hoped so. I am still learning 3 years later what it means to manage something your father built with care over decades. I make decisions slowly and document everything and call Patricia when I am uncertain. The green metal box is on my desk now. I know exactly what is in it,